Often, when we talk about films that came out before the 2000s, we say things like, oh, you could never make that now. Or even, they don't make them like they used to. But in the case of Death Becomes Her, I think an argument could be made that in recent times, audiences have shown a craving for Gothic silliness of this level. And films like this are not only in demand, but they are back. Let me tell you why. Designing Hollywood, movie fans, and beyond. I am your host, Oliver Ricketts. Death Becomes Her is a modern-age Gothic fantasy film from 1992, full of tropes about Hollywood stars and divas, as well as Universal Monsters-style horror. Most important of all, we've got over-the-top silliness and camp with this one. The movie also boasts messages of body positivity and accepting that age eventually comes for us all and that we should age gracefully. Moreover, it is just a cool movie. Like, seeping cool. Like every single frame in this thing is cool. A zombie gets a hole blown through her and then sits on a couch like this.
Okay. I thought you were cheap.
Two undead divas fight it out, and we watch only their uniquely shaped silhouettes.
Eyebrow without major surgery! I've raised a lot more than an eyebrow in my day!
And who could forget when Meryl Streep does this to her neck?
Oh, please, you're insane.
Oh, then how come you never once invited me to one of those parties at your parents' house?
Because we didn't think you'd feel comfortable.
This is exactly the kind of Gothic nightmare meets joyful, silly fever dream that my generation of moviegoers is searching for. And I'm so glad that this little movie from 1992 has in recent years achieved cult status, with new things being made of the property like the upcoming Broadway show. And folks, before we get into details why, I want to point out that our sponsor, Gardena Cinema, is actually doing a screening of this movie very soon. If you live in Southern California and you have not experienced Death Becomes Her, I highly recommend checking out Gardena Cinema's screening of this film at their movie theater. The screening's on June 22nd, 2024, and I cannot imagine a better environment to first experience a movie that is just this much fun. I'll be linking their Instagram and website in the description so that you can purchase tickets or just get more info about the event. And if you're watching this after the 22nd, don't forget, Gardena Cinema does screenings like this all the time, with movies of all different kinds, including some that we featured on this show, like our upcoming review for The Birdcage, and of course Ryan Gosling's Drive. It's a great destination for any movie fan, and I highly recommend that you check them out. Thank you, Gardena Cinema, for sponsoring Designing Hollywood's movie reviews. In Death Becomes Her, two adversaries drink a strange elixir, offering them everlasting youth, thrusting them into a whimsically chaotic rivalry over eternal beauty. Through their journey, they unravel the perilous consequences of their insatiable quest for perfection. And I wasn't kidding when I said that my generation is craving this kind of film. Because Death Becomes Her is perhaps most similar in tone to contemporary movies like this year's Lisa Frankenstein, or the early 2000s cult classic Jennifer's Body. You could even go as far as to compare it to something like the beloved Addams Family Values.
Malibu Barbie.
Malibu Barbie.
The nightmare.
And of course, all of these films feature not only similar subject matter, but unfortunately a similar Rotten Tomatoes score, with Death Becomes Her coming in at a shocking 55% critic rating. But of course, as a fan of this movie, I don't see this as a mark against the movie's quality. I see it as a resounding sign that the movie is simply not for everybody. And that's part of what makes it so great. If there ever was an argument that they don't make them like they used to, it's because movies have gotten very expensive, and so studios are very afraid of making movies that don't have 4-quadrant appeal. And I would definitely say that this movie does not have 4-quadrant appeal, but there is a crowd that will love it. Because this is a very specific flavor. Back in our childhoods, this might have been something that you saw on late night cable TV when you were staying over at your friend's house, and it would just eat up sections of your mind. You'd scroll the channels hoping to see that movie again. And while the discovery of this movie is sure to quickly win over the imagination of a young horror comedy fan, it's not a surprise that it didn't win over the favor of critics. Likely for the same elements that have now made it a cult classic, because this movie features images like this,
Animal, psycho,
Don't come near me!
wife, pusher.
played in all sincerity. It's just an alternative tone and feel, and I don't know that everybody's looking for it all the time, but I certainly am. Of course, to me, this movie is especially easy to connect to, because it feels like seasoned director Robert Zemeckis took more cues from Sam Raimi than he took inspiration from his own previous works. This movie is much more Army of Darkness than it is Forrest Gump. And anytime that you can be favorably compared to Army of Darkness, you win some points.
See this? This is my boomstick!
This is also one of those films that is just fascinating to watch as a time capsule of the 90s. Don't forget, this movie is over 30 years old now. A lot has changed, including some of the main players. You can even see some influences in modern cinema connecting all the way back to this film. The most direct, perhaps, would be one found in another Bruce Willis film, Glass. Notice how this scene in the insane asylum in Glass is framed exactly like this scene in the insane asylum in Death Becomes Her? Is it that much of a stretch to think that M. Night Shyamalan's Gothic epic starring Bruce Willis took cues from this Gothic epic starring Bruce Willis? I don't think so. And speaking of Bruce Willis, he is so great in this film. While we're used to seeing him in either a badass action hero role like John McClane or a smooth talking charmer like in Moonlighting, this role is neither thing. Here, he is a spineless, bumbling buffoon, and he plays the part so well. It's a reminder of why I love him as a performer so much, despite not connecting with a lot of his later work. Because this is much more of a role that today we're more accustomed to seeing someone like Bob Odenkirk play than someone like Bruce Willis. In fact, if you look at it, he's even kind of dressed like Bob Odenkirk. However, despite Bruce Willis's character Ernest being spineless and bumbling and kind of a dislikable figure for a lot of it, much of this film's message is dependent on the audience realizing that it is never too late in your life for self-improvement, and you can always become a better person who makes the most of their life. And so, in a surprising twist and an excellent character arc for Ernest, we do get a turn at the end of this movie that is closer to what you might expect to see from Bruce Willis given his other work. The film also has so much to say about societal expectations on women, particularly women who are in show business and specifically Hollywood, because there's still unspoken societal pressure for women to stay young forever, put off aging as long as you can, and that's just fighting the laws of nature. You don't need to appear the same as you did when you were 22 to be valuable and beautiful as a person, and that's what the film is trying to convey. And Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn play great roles being tortured by this societal construct, always looking for ways to look younger, put off the inevitable, try to make it so that age doesn't come for them, even though it comes for us all. And while I found this message particularly powerful, the horror and comedy elements here also stop it from feeling preachy or ham-fisted. And that's the best way to deliver a message, in my humble opinion. Folks, I'm going to take a time out here to tell you that if you love deep dives into films like this, or films of any era, you'll definitely want to subscribe to the Designing Hollywood YouTube channel and like this video so that more like it show up in your feed. We're always breaking down and talking about different movies in an effort to celebrate all things film. So if you love movies and you want to talk about them with like-minded people, join our community here, subscribe to this channel. You'll also want to check out our Designing Hollywood podcast, where we talk to industry professionals like costume designers and cinematographers behind the films that you love. All of that, of course, will be linked in the description. Folks, I really cannot tell you how much I enjoyed watching this film. It's one of those movies from the 90s that is just aged beautifully. It is exactly the kind of movie that is right up my alley. And while I said that I don't think it's true they don't make them like this one anymore, I am hoping that the trend of cinema being made for niche audiences at a lower cost continues, so that they keep making movies like Lisa Frankenstein, which again is very similar to Death Becomes Her, and we get more cult classics like this. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe to Designing Hollywood, and tell me in the comments what other films you think that I would enjoy, and maybe we'll make a video about that next. Of course, make sure to check out our sponsor, Gardena Cinema, for not only a screening of this film on June 22nd, but many other films from all across the spectrum. They truly show movies for every person, and if you are a film fan, I'm sure you can find an event that will be a delightful night out for you. For Designing Hollywood, I'm Oliver the Ricketts, and until next time, get out there and go see a movie.